Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to tonight's episode of Talking Point. I'm your host, Syed Neaz Ahmed. Tonight in our studios, we have a very distinguished lady from a very distinguished family. She is the daughter of an illustrious lawyer, very famous in Bangladesh and throughout the world, and she is in her own right a very well-known person, Tania Amir, a senior advocate of Supreme Court of Bangladesh, a bar at law, and until recently she was the Secretary General of SARC Law. Welcome to the show, Tania.
Yes, I'm delighted to be here.
How are you?
Very well indeed.
Thank you for wading through the traffic of London, but then again you are used to London traffic, isn't it?
Absolutely, and Dhaka traffic as well.
Probably it's not as bad as that of Dhaka.
Well, you grow into it. It's a way of life in Dhaka.
What brings you to London this time?
A bit of professional work, and given the fact that the Supreme Court is shut all of this month, and one of my sons is here as well, so spending a little time.
Why do the Supreme Court would shut for such a long time?
It's not a question that I'm mandated to answer, because I'm not a decision maker on this, so it's the Chief Justice that decides, and they draw up the calendar for the full year ahead in time. So I'm sure there must be valid considerations.
I'm sure. Well, what more valid than the lawyers need a holiday?
Well, mind you, Niaz, the emergency benches still go on, so if there is emergency, of course the court is accessible, just like anywhere else. Yes.
So when A&E is open, as they say, accidents and emergency.
Sure, you have to make out a case if you go before an emergency bench as to the urgency. So if you can overcome the hurdle and establish that this is an urgent matter, then of course due hearing will be given to you.
Great. My research team came up with a lot of things. It also says that she is a voice against corruption and misdeeds. We'll come to that later.
This is what Google. Again, something I can't control, and
no, you can't control. No, and again, Google doesn't control our lives. You see, but if
not
you are,
all
you
our
are.
lives.
If you are, you are.
Yes.
So you are also one of a very, very active human rights lawyer, isn't it?
When I was practicing here very early in my career, human rights and the European Convention was not part of the British jurisdiction. So people who did human rights were lawyers who didn't make it in the cutting edge practice in the city and so on. So when I went back, it was a reward in a beautiful way, because we don't have a state system of legal aid. So in other words, law firms that were doing legal aid were extremely successful. So you are really engaging with the cream of the cream, the best of the best. So the exposure that I got working in human rights, I would never have gotten it had I chosen to remain here and practice. And being a woman living in Bangladesh, if human rights is an area of interest, there's no dearth of opportunity, and you get drawn into so many issues, whether it's environment, empowerment of women, child rights, habeas corpus, detention, all sorts of things. So one can be very, very creative in doing human rights work in Bangladesh. If one is interested, that's the place to be.
What is the human rights situation in Bangladesh then? I mean, I know if it somebody whose profession is to take briefs on violation of human rights, then he would know much better than others what is going on.
When I do human rights work, it's mostly pro bono public interest work. My professionally, the briefs that I take in the strict sense of the word briefs, those would be cross-border transactions, foreign investments. So we're in a way a getaway or a corridor for foreign investments to come into Bangladesh. So those are more my bread and butter. And the human rights, pro bono public interest is areas of work which is close to my heart. And it also allows me an opportunity to get out of the office, engage with real people, go to the villages, often meet activists. And it's a breath of fresh air for me, and it makes me feel alive. So not that the other doesn't, but this is a different sort of thing.
It takes you out of the office.
Yes, and I quite enjoy that as well. And in a very modest way, you feel that maybe just maybe you're making a difference in someone's life, and that is a sense of responsibility to give back something to the society, and against all odds, when you win, wow, it's a great feeling. Yes.
Well, just before we stepped into this studio, we were talking to our CEO, and you were there, and we were discussing the situation of women in Bangladesh, and I said that I'm not going to comment because I'm saving my questions for the show. So,
right.
What is the situation? I mean, every week or so we hear about some sort of violations against women and children, and I know, I accept that these things happen everywhere, see, but we hear more about such things in Bangladesh, despite the fact that there's a lot of hoo-ha that yes, things have improved, but have they?
Right. You're ready for this because it's not going to be a simple answer.
Sure.
I first want to highlight that in South Asia, Bangladesh is a country where all the social indicators show that we are ahead, certainly ahead of Pakistan, even India, in certain areas, even in Sri Lanka. So whatever the successes of Bangladesh, I want to start with the successes that are measurable, successes that are, as per the international yardstick, measurable successes in the social indicators, whether it's birth control, the mortality rate of children that has gone down, whether it's a microcredit, whether it's the garments industry. In all of these areas, wherever Bangladesh is seen as a model of success, it's the women. And it's not women like me. It really are women who are at the grassroots, where society has not invested anything in them.
Right.
Some of them, or very few of them, have seen the light of education. But whatever little the society has investment made in this sector, the return has been 100-fold. So we have a saying...
But is it benefiting those grassroots level workers?
Well, I'm coming to that, and as I said, you'll have to allow me stages. In terms of the grassroots workers or the grassroots entrepreneurs, in terms of, again, the safety net, the social safety, the environment at work is not up there to in relation to the success stories that they bring the glory to the image of Bangladesh. So there is that gap. I want to highlight again that in the same country, in the same legal system, we have huge industrialists or companies who will borrow money from banks and
not return.
Well, they're defaulters, and these women would borrow money, and in the same legal system, where the rate of interest is extremely high, almost verging on usury, if you ask me. But, they come back with a smile of success, a smile of an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, and they repay on time. And the repayment rate is 99.9%. In the same culture, in the same legal system.
Are you referring to the revolution that started by Grameen Bank?
Well, it's not just Grameen Bank. I don't want to just focus on Grameen Bank. There are a lot of programs by the government as well in agricultural areas where women are borrowers and so on, and many other NGOs, government, non-government sectors are doing this. So what I want to highlight is that when the investment or access to credit And when we talk about access to credit, again, from a South Asian perspective, we are beginning to look at it as a human rights issue. So it's not a luxury, it's almost akin to survival. So once you have access to credit, you have some credit, you can start doing something, you develop skills, and often these women are single mothers, and not by choice, Neaz. They're single mothers because of poverty, they're deserted by their husbands who have come to the cities to find jobs or whatever, or they're victims of polygamous marriages and deserted in that sense. So a mom, with 3 children, she's a survivor. She, when the sun is very high in midday, she has no one behind her.
That's very good. She's surviving, but at what level?
Except her shadow.
My worry is at what level, see?
Your worry needs to translate into something tangible for these women. So it's very well that you're worried about it, but so what, with due respect? A lot of the times we see this worry in a very condescending, patriarchal manner. So, society often thinks, what is her welfare? And I have come across situations in the name of her welfare, often her rights are being encroached upon. I'll give you an example of, years ago when I was a youngish lawyer, I did a case of a British Bangladeshi girl, Rehana, and there are many, many cases like this when she was taken to Sylhet and a marriage was being arranged, enforced, or there were various brokers, her uncles, maybe her father's side, her cousin brother, brokering a marriage for her, and she was made to dress up and sit in a room, and people were coming to see her and so on. And she wasn't used to it, and she didn't like it. So her way out, and she was robbed of all her liberty. So she found a childhood playmate, in Sylhet, in her village where she was born, and they ran away and they eloped and they married. And the father's side of the family brought a case of kidnapping and rape, and the husband got out on bail, saying that, well, it wasn't, here's the Kabinnama, a marriage certificate. So it is, I've not kidnapped and raped her, it's a valid marriage. And the court, both the father's side and the husband's side were sort of as if she's a chattel, fighting over her. And the court said, well, we'll take her into safe custody. So I challenged this whole concept of so-called safe custody. So we did a habeas corpus application, just as you would do for a political prisoner, a prisoner of a conscience, someone who is locked up against their will. So this concept of safe custody, in the old days, it used to be in a jail, in the name of her welfare, because the court didn't know who to hand over this young lady to the father or to the husband. And then, we also initiated some law reform, and now we have shelter homes. But still, what we challenged is this whole concept of safe custody against the consent of the person that we are talking about. So it's not the question of who you hand over her to. The question is that why is she incarcerated? Whether it's in a 5-star hotel, or whether it's in a jail, or whether it's in a shelter home, the venue is not the issue. The issue is, under our law, as in the laws of this country, you can only incarcerate someone when they have committed a criminal act. So in this case, getting married is not a criminal act. If her father's side of the story is right, because there is a criminal case against the husband, at best she is a victim and a witness. So under no circumstances can you take a victim or a witness of an offense and incarcerate them.
No. So in brief, what happened to her?
So we did a case, this was first of its kind. I did a case of habeas corpus before the Constitutional Court and argued that she is a prisoner of conscience. She is incarcerated because she thinks, because she has a mind of her own. How is it different between someone who is a political prisoner who doesn't think and his or her act is not in conformity with the culture or view of society. So here, her view is different because she didn't want to be forced into a marriage without her say in the matter. And in that case, the British High Commission was quite active, actually. They sent me a file, and they said that they were writing to the Foreign Office.
Okay, Tania,
and
we'll
so
have
on.
to take a commercial break.
Okay.
Which I usually name them as our bread and butter. So when we come back, we'll definitely pick up the threads from here.
Okay.
Thank you, viewers, for being with us, and we'll be soon back after this break. Thank you.